Hello, welcome to another week on my allotment. And it's properly autumn now. It's actually a lovely day, but the mornings and the evenings are a lot cooler. So, the growing time of the day is getting shorter. And of course it's that time when the squashes are soon to be ready. And if I'm honest, I don't really know. I just counted 17 pumpkins on my plot, and that doesn't include the Atlantic Giant, which is of no culinary use as far as I'm aware. It's just a bit of fun with Barry about the size of them. But I've got 17 usable pumpkins, and of course having 2 plots I have to give 5 pumpkins per plot, so 10 in total, to the farm shop as part of the deal of having the allotment. So 10 of those are spoken for, and they're Charmant and Cinderella, the 2 different types. And they all look fairly orange. There's a couple that are still green, and I'm going to leave those on the plant, obviously. But the rest have oranged up nicely. Is that a term? And I don't know whether now is the right time to cut them off the plant. I'm not sure. I've asked various other people what they're doing. Some have cut them off, and as you walk around you can see the empty space where they were, and others are still there on the plant. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to split it 50-50. I'm going to take, well, say 50-50, I'm going to take 10 pumpkins off, cut them off with a nice long stem, and then store them here on the allotment. And see, there's another thing, what do I do with them? Because I've got the sheds, but if it's a warm day the sheds get quite hot, and I don't think the cut pumpkins really want to be getting that hot inside a shed. I don't think they want to be getting wet. That's another thing I need to avoid, I think. I don't want them near any pests. Yeah, I'm a little bit unsure as to what to do, but anyway, that aside, I'm going to cut 10 off, and it's quite an exciting time. I'm looking forward to that. And the rest of my time up here, I've just finished work and I've got a couple of hours before I go home for my tea, will be spent harvesting and watering, split between the 2. So let's go and cut some pumpkins. Well, that's 10 pumpkins, handsome things that they are, and they're cut off, and I'm going to store them in the shed. Made the decision. I don't want to tempt anybody by leaving them up here in full view to pinch them as we approach Halloween. Not that there's ever been any theft on this site, but I don't want to tempt anyone, so I'm going to tuck them away in the shed, and hopefully they'll be fine in there. Yeah, I'm very pleased with them. They really are the quintessential pumpkin. Cinderella and Charmant, and I can't tell the difference between the 2. So, because there's some of each on here. So yeah, I'm very pleased, and I think Cheryl and I will have to learn what to do with them, because we've got enough of them. Let's cook them and eat them. Actually, when I think about it, I watch a lot of fellow YouTubers on their allotments, and apart from Cliff on Castle Hill Gardens, and while I'm on the subject, I hope you're recovering well from your operation, Cliff. Look forward to seeing you back in the garden. Apart from Cliff, you don't see many people growing pumpkins. Now, I grow them simply because it's part of the contract. I think if that changed tomorrow, I have to say that despite the fact I don't think I've ever eaten a pumpkin, I think I'd continue to grow them, because I just think they're a beautiful thing in their own right. So yeah, when I get home tonight, I'm going to ask Cheryl if we can't look into that and see if there's a way of using these beautiful objects for cooking. I mean, I've heard, who hasn't heard of pumpkin pie? But you know, it's a uniquely American thing. But you know, I don't see why we can't try it. There must be other ways of cooking them. I don't particularly want a pie, but we use butternuts. I mean, I'm sure they can go in a soup at the very least. I love the hot soups in the winter. So yeah, we'll have to have a look at that and see if we can't use the excess in the kitchen. Suggestions at the bottom of the screen, please. It's all go on the driving range. Well, a modest harvest, but a good one nevertheless. And with the tomatoes and peppers and cucumbers and celery that I have at home, there's more than enough there for, oh, and lettuce, more than enough there for a nice meal. And I changed my mind with the pumpkins. I've put them under that piece of laminated plastic because I'm worried that the shed would be too hot. So they can sit there and wait for the time when the farm shop will take them ready for Halloween. Now, I've mentioned on previous videos that I'm watching a lot of guys and girls doing allotment vlogs on YouTube. I think it's important to try and find your own little niche, and I am very interested in health and or lack of it in certain cases, and I've read extensively on it. I've read many books. I've watched lots of presentations on YouTube, and you know, I think I'm getting a feel for it now. And I have read a few books that have been interesting, but I've read a couple of books that have been life-changing, and I want to mention them, and I want you to know about them. And you know, you can choose to ignore it, that's your right, or you could have a look at it and make up your own mind, which I think is important. And the books are, the first one was How Not to Die by Michael Greger. That for me is, until when I read it, was without shadow of a doubt, by a long way, the best book I've ever read in my life. It actually did change my life considerably for the better. And as the name suggests, he goes through the leading causes of death in the West, and it's the top 14 of the top, or 14 of the top 15 killers. The reason he doesn't do all 15 is because one of the top 15 killers is accidents. And you can eat what you like, but if you walk in front of a bus, you know, broccoli's not going to help you. So How Not to Die from heart disease, lung disease, brain diseases, digestive cancers, infections, diabetes, high blood pressure, liver diseases, blood cancers, kidney disease, breast cancer, depression, suicidal depression, prostate cancer, Parkinson's disease, and iatrogenic causes. And I had to look that up when I read it, and that is being killed by your doctor. So yeah, that was a fascinating book, and I read it, and it really did change my life. And it's written by a man called Michael Greger. He has a not-for-profit website called nutritionfacts.org. No adverts, no bias. He just takes every English-speaking or English-written scientific paper on nutrition from all over the world, and he publishes it on his website. So if you have a particular disease and you want a completely unbiased, factual summary of causes, prevention and cures, then nutritionfacts.org is a really good place to go. It's not quackery, which is what probably the NHS would say. It's science. And any doctor you go to is almost certainly decades behind the science. So I can thoroughly recommend that book. And I could sum it up. I mean, it's about 600 or 700 pages long, but basically what it's saying is eat a whole food, plant-based diet, and it will prevent most diseases, and it'll certainly reverse an awful lot of them. And now that's amazing. Now that was a life-changing book, as I said, and I didn't think it could be beaten until I came across Healthy at 100. And that book is written by John Robbins. I think he's something to do with an ice cream company in America, and he had a fortune, sat there waiting for him with his father, and he walked away from it because he could see the damage that ice cream was doing, and he wanted no part of it. But as the name suggests, it's a book that has studied the scientific literature from people who've studied the healthiest and most long-lived people in the world. When I was living in Germany in the army, I wanted to go on holiday with my family to visit my brother in Cyprus. And so we went to a travel agent to book the flights. I can't remember where they went from, but it involved 2 train journeys and a connection between. And when the lady in the German travel agent had it all down on paper for me, there was a 3-minute gap between one train and the other. And I asked her if she wouldn't mind just putting us on an earlier first train so that there was a bigger gap. And she said to me, and I've never forgotten this, she said, "Sir, this is Germany. Our trains run on time. You will have 3 minutes to change to another platform. That is more than enough time." Anyway, I not argued with her, but I tried to make my point, and she wouldn't have it. She said, "Sir, you will be able to make your connection." Anyway, in the end I relented, and I said, if it goes wrong, I'll be coming back to see you. Anyway, got on the train on the day of our holiday, and we got off the train at the first change, and me and my family, with my 2 or 3 little children, can't remember how many we had at the time, and the suitcases and my wife, we ran up the stairs, over the platform, down the other side, got on the train, puffing and panting, and all the Germans walked calmly across, got on, sat down, took their seats, and on the minute it said on the ticket, the train went out the station. Now, the reason I tell you that story is not to bore you, but if you want to know, and in Britain we run a shambolic, shameful rail service. It's a disgrace. They can't make the trains run on time, they're over expensive, they're overcrowded, etc, etc. If we wanted to cure this problem, what you do is you go to the country that runs the most efficient train service. Now, whether that's Japan or Germany, I'm not sure, but certainly I can vouch for the German train system. It's on a track, they know when it leaves and they know when it arrives. It's a mathematical calculation. So, the reason I tell you that is these people wanted to know how to live the longest and the healthiest. It's no good living a long time if you're riddled with disease and bedbound. So they've been all over the world to the Abkhazians, the Vilcabambas, the Hunzas, and the elder Okinawans. These people live well into their centenarians, and they don't just live that long, they work and thrive, and they have vitality and health, etc. And these people were studied extensively, as well as other tribes that unfortunately have long since either been devoured by modern civilization or ruined. And the science is really, really emphatic and definite, and there are certain things in common. And of course, we all actually know, if in our heart of hearts, what is the best way to live, and that is what they have in common is very, very little meat. And of course the meat they catch is not farmed, it's wild. So very, very little meat, almost exclusively a whole food, plant-based diet, very high in carbohydrates, as in rice, potatoes, sweet potatoes. They don't have gymnasiums, they don't have cars, if they go to work, they walk to work. If they have to cut the hedge, they use secateurs and use their muscles. They have fresh air, they have clean water, and exercise is part and parcel of their lives. The reason we fear getting older, certainly in this country and around the West, is we have no role models. People getting older, you know, think about your family, think about my family. As they get older, and they all say, "Well, Martin, it's part of getting old." It is not. It doesn't have to be that way. And I've changed, as a matter of reading this book, you know, it's reinforced what I'm doing is right, the right thing, but it's given me a new attitude to getting older. I've never really feared it. It's not as if I'm going to lose any dashing good looks, is it? But I wouldn't say I'm looking forward to it, but it holds no fears for me. And I do look forward to, as I get older, to being healthy and on the go and full of vitality and enthusiasm and vigour. And that's why I have an allotment. So that's why I mention it, and it comes back full circle to why I do what I do here. But I've read these books and they made a profound difference to me. I've told other people about them. The older generation tend not to be interested. They poo-poo it, they scoff it, and they spout all the usual socially accepted mantras. And that's everybody's right. But I mention it here and now because if you have children, or perhaps more importantly, grandchildren, they're growing up in a toxic, poisoned world, and they need every advantage you and I can give them. And so, think about it. Dickens and Shakespeare are all very well, but I think every child on the planet should be given the opportunity to read these books and save themselves from degenerative and life-changing diseases that, on the whole, as a generalisation, we give ourselves. We used to die from diarrheal diseases, tuberculosis and infections and waterborne diseases. We don't die from those anymore in the Western world. We die from diseases of excess. By the way, I thought I should mention as a postscript to that story, when we got back from our holiday in Cyprus, I did go back to the travel agents and I did tell the lady that her prediction was absolutely spot on. She was surprised to see me, but she wasn't surprised by what I had to say. Now, we really like our butternut squash in the winter. When I get home from work and I'm cold and wet, there's nothing nicer than butternut soup. And I have to say, this crop is looking really promising. I mean, okay, this is one of the larger specimens. However, look at that. And he's not alone. There's lots like it. That is fantastic. I've got to have at least a dozen like that. And I'm probably looking at about 30, maybe more total. Really pleased. Of course, there are then those that are just forming and they may run out of time. But so be it. It's looking like a good crop. So please excuse the wind, but I'm going to have a quick whiz up the site. There's the 3 rhubarb plants that Terry gave me the other day, and as suggested by one of my viewers, I've now picked all the cut stalks off, and already I've got growth on 2 of the 3. Now picking tomatoes, and the blackberry crop is fantastic. Been doing a bit of digging out of the nettles and weeds, so I need to mow this and pick it all up. I want to show you the difference in my courgette zucchini plants. These ones that are just in the normal ground have got the old mildew, and they're most definitely on the way out. Then comes the one plant I've got in this bay, and that's not compost, it's the old soil from the beds that I made. It's been in there about 2 years, and every now and again I take some more out and scree it and put it back on the plot. So this is really just old soil, but that's done very well. But this one is in my old rotted down compost, and that has excelled, not just in the health of the plant, but in the crop and the yield. The arch has been a roaring success. And as we've moved into autumn, I'm starting to get gaps where crops have come out. Compost has gone down, and I've cut away quite a few of the big leaves on the butternuts and the squashes just to let what little sun we get in so that they can ripen. Those garden peas don't look as if they're going to come to anything. The packet, the variety is called Eddie, and the packet said can be used as a late crop, but I don't see that coming to anything. Although that celery there is looking good. Might take some of that home tonight. The raspberries have been fantastic. I'm going to pick the first of the leeks today. And here's the mess that was my pumpkin bed. And I've got 19 pumpkins in total, and if you count the Atlantic Giant, that's 20. The sweet peas have been wonderful. I haven't cut those for days and they're still flowering, so I'm just going to leave them now. I cut all the strawberries back, and look. It's the middle of September and I've got more strawberries growing. Haven't picked a red cabbage yet, but they don't seem yet to have succumbed to clubroot, unless succumbing to them means they haven't cropped yet. Pumpkins under that plastic. Looking forward to picking the parsnips. However, I don't want to sound ungrateful, but look at the size of that thing. Unless it's only a few inches long and the growth has all gone widthways, that could be about 3 meters deep. And that cosmos is stunning. And the sedum on the pond is being loved by the honeybees. And just here is some of the wood that I've chopped up, ready for a nice cold winter in my shed. So, a quick whisk round the plot, and it continues to thrill, excite and please me. Not to mention the meals we're eating. Well, my first, is it a pulling? My first lifting? Yes, my first crop of leeks, which Cheryl has already agreed she'll make into a soup, leek and potato soup, So I believe onions go in that. So it'll be my leeks, my onions and my potatoes. I get an immense amount of joy out of doing that and saying, yes, everything on this plate or in this dish is mine. So yes. Happy. Those would make any Welshman happy, let alone an Englishman. And in the spirit of competition, John has presented his. I'm going to have to come in a bit closer, John. Fantastic. Oh, I love it. Absolutely. Listen, they all taste the same.
Yes. Look at that.
Yeah. Planted on the same day. Mummy, Daddy and baby. Well, I planted about a dozen giant Russian sunflowers. And the packet said they grow to between 10 and 15 feet high. Well, I'm 6 foot tall and that one's the same height as me, so these have definitely underperformed, and the slugs ate most of the plants earlier on in the summer. However, that is still a thing of beauty to behold. This is what I mean about the French climbing bean. Look how unpleasant it looks. It's a practical plant. Although there's a lot of badly damaged beans on there, there's a lot of good stuff as well. So it's not that I haven't had a good crop, I have. It's just on the plot, they're just downright unpleasant to look at. I don't know whether I've just been unlucky and they've got some kind of blight or leaf curl or what, but compared to my runner beans, they are an ugly plant. And they're all that, well, that one over there is not too bad, but they're pretty much all the same. And yet when you look at runner beans, you know, they're a very, very lush plant, lots of growth, attractive to look at. They look healthy. And these don't. Albeit, as I say, I've had a really good crop off them. Well, it could be bigger, but that'll do fine for tonight's salad. Well, it really is a great time on the allotment. The squashes are being harvested. I'm leaving the butternut squash a little bit longer, but the sweet corn is coming through, and that's my first celery off the allotment. Oh, what a smell, it's fantastic. Nothing like the anemic stuff you buy in the supermarket. And I'm going to use these leaves instead of lettuce on the salad. So every part of that will be eaten. Can't wait for tea. Well, let's see how my compost heap that I turned a few days ago is doing. I'm going to put my compost thermometer in the heap. That is shooting up. Slowed down now, but it's still going up. So that's about 63 degrees centigrade inside that heap. Well, I think that's it for the week. It's Friday evening or Friday afternoon, and I'm working this weekend, so I shan't be up here again until next week. So thank you very much for those that have watched it. Well done if you saw it through to the end. Thanks for those that have subscribed, I really do appreciate it. And all being well, I shall see you again next week. Bye for now.